Welcome to Vantage Points. I'm Hisham Maligi. Tonight I have Larry Sharpe, a former candidate for governor of New York in 2018 and former candidate for vice president of the United States in 2016. Larry is a personal friend and colleague. I've known him now for about 5 years or more, and he's one of the most eloquent, intelligent people I've ever met in my life, and I'm happy to welcome you, Larry. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and please tell us more about yourself.
Wow, I don't know. That's a pretty good intro. I feel bad now. I've got to be special now after that, right? Well, no, thank you so much. You know that the respect is mutual. I've asked you more than once for your opinion and your values and on issues that I've had to deal with also politically. So it's been very important. So thank you for you also being there. I appreciate that. I'm running again. This is not just my first time. Now I'm running my second time running for the VP. I figure second time's a charm, right? They can't beat me twice.
You're running in 2020 for
vice
president of the United States again.
I actually wasn't going to be forward. I knew I wasn't going to run for the presidency at all. I mean, I just couldn't handle being top of the ticket. The run for governor in 2017 and 2018, it was brutal. As you know, you watched it, right? I mean, yes. you watched it, you saw it. It was a year and a half of me taking, a year and a half out of my life, not working, away from my family, crossing the state, trying to make some impact and letting people know that there's a better way. I feel like we were successful in doing that. I wish we had won, obviously, but we still did a good enough job to get ballot access. And then I crossed the state again in 2019, trying to reach out again to get more people to get some local victories. As you've heard me say many times, the top of the ticket has value because it brings press, but the odds of victory are slim, right? But the press is the best. The bottom of the ticket has the best chance of victory, but it doesn't get any press. So if the top of the ticket can then push the press to the bottom of the ticket, now we've got both and we get victories. I've been talking about that for 4 years. I made that happen last year. Like I took my press to the local candidates. They got the press and they had the relationship. And many of them, as you know, who won were on my campaign. So they got off my campaign, learned from my campaign, ran their own campaigns, and then won. And we got 103 total victories in New York State. But for those of you who aren't in New York, which means we can actually be on multiple lines. You can be on Libertarian line and Democrat line, conservative line, Republican line, whatever. You can be on all the lines at once on multiple lines. So out of those 103, 96 were fusion, meaning they were on some 7 registered libertarians. So, not a bad deal when it went from 0 to 7. Not bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So take a minute to explain this ballot access thing, because this is 48 years coming, right?
We had never had ballot access in New York State. New York State was an odd state, right? Most states have some rule of a certain percentage of a statewide election. It's a common thing for most states. They have some on some type of statewide election is a common type of rule. New York State, no. New York State was very specific. You must get 50,000 votes only and only on the gubernatorial line on your one line. That's it. That was the only way to get ballot access. That was it. We had never gotten it before. We finally got it. We broke that very hand. So we're able to obtain ballot access, which means now Libertarian Party can just go on to the ballots with very little hurdles. There's a few signatures and you're on. And that's why we had so many people who were running in 2019. It was easy to get in the ballot, and it still is. Well, then New York got angry at me and said, how dare you do that, Mr. Sharpe? We are mad at you now. We're going to change the rules. And through a committee fiat, they decided, you know what? No, it's not 50,000. It's 130,000. And it's not every 2. So I know we told you that when you got your 50,000 votes, you keep ballot access for 4 years. Yeah, we were lying. What we meant was only 2. We're changing the rules in the middle of the game. And then that got shot. No, that's bad. So then His Majesty King Andrew Cuomo II, who is our governor and or king and ruler,
Hey,
He then
use your
said,
own line, man.
yes, yes. So then he gonna put it in the budget now. Passes new law,
Mhm.
and that passed already. So that's now, they did it anyway. They screwed us over anyway. We hope we'll win a lawsuit. We might not, but the goal is to get 130,000 votes. And that was when I agreed to run for the VP, right? I wasn't going to run at all. It was brutal and I was still recovering. I was still looking at maybe running in 22 again to give the governorship another shot.
Mhm.
But that's still another year from now. I still have more time before I need to do that. So I
Mhm.
had some time, but
Yeah.
I decided instead to do this because for those of you who don't know libertarian politics, if you do, you're going to know this. Lincoln Chafee, the pragmatic person's choice within our party. There are any factions within our party, and the pragmatic faction, one of the favorites was Lincoln Chafee, a
Mhm.
former governor, a former senator, a former mayor. He was a Democrat, Republican, Independent. He dropped out just a week ago. When
Mhm.
he dropped out, that left a void. And when the void was left, many of the pragmatics in our party said, we want someone else. We want Judge Jim Gray. And they asked Judge Jim Gray to join. For those who don't know, Judge Jim Gray has been libertarian since about 1996, something, 8 in that area. And he was drugs was bad in the 90s when it wasn't cool. He was that guy. And he joined the Libertarian Party back then. He ran for a couple local offices, didn't win. But his claim to fame in libertarian world is he ran as the vice presidential candidate with Gary Johnson when Gary Johnson first ran in 2012. That's when I became a libertarian. I'm a Gary Johnson libertarian. Without Gary Johnson, I'm not a libertarian. He's the guy who brought me in. My
Mhm.
first vote for libertarians was Gary Johnson
Yeah.
and Judge Jim Gray. Those
Yeah.
my and when he came and said, Larry, I want you, I was like, wow, how do I say no to the judge? It was
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And even though I hesitated, I did hesitate because I still was like, do I want to do it? But then I had literally the phone started ringing.
Mm.
6, 7, 8 people. Larry, you got to do this. You can't say no to the judge. Larry, we're going to help you. We'll back you. Don't worry. We'll take care. We got our support. Larry, what about ballot access in New York? How are you going to get 100,000 votes if you're not in a ballot somewhere? There's 100,000 New Yorkers who will vote for you in the VP slot in New York just to get us ballot access. You're a guy who will run only libertarian. All that stuff is what came up. And for those, again, you don't know, we have to get 130,000 votes on the libertarian line.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have someone who will agree to not run on other lines,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is also a challenge for us.
Yeah.
So if it's not me, somebody else might take all the lines they can get.
Yeah.
Gary Johnson did in 2016. He took the independence line and libertarian line.
Mm.
If we do that in this election, we may not get ballot access again.
Yeah, because the votes will be divided.
They'll be divided, exactly. So all the things that came together, how could I say no to the judge, right? And I would say this, there's only 2 people who could have got me to run. Gary Johnson and Judge Gray. Both of those 2 could have got me to run. And Gary didn't ask.
I think Gary had his fill.
Yes, he had his fill. Yes.
Yeah, I first also met the judge, and I love the judge in back in 2012 as well during that first campaign with Gary Johnson, and we've been good friends ever since. Last I saw him was in the convention in New Orleans in 2018. So I want to go back to the issue of ballot access because most people, especially Democrats and Republicans, are unaware of what's entailed in that. So, for example, when you had to run for governor, you needed to collect how many signatures?
Well, officially, and then what we had to actually do. Officially, we had to get 15,000 signatures.
Okay.
That's a lot. That takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy, and energy that we're not spending on getting the vote out. Energy and money we're not spending on advertisements and flyers. We're not spending the time and energy on that. And look, there's donor burnout. There's activist burnout. These are people who are going out and busting their rump on weekends. They could be home with their family, and instead they're out collecting signatures for me. It's a hard thing to do.
Yes,
but we
for
actually
viewers,
sorry?
I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear for viewers. Imagine you're standing at a bus stop or a subway station, holding a sheet of paper on or a notepad and asking people to sign to allow someone to run for office. And imagine the responses if even somebody stops.
Mm-hmm.
Collecting those signatures, and we're talking 15,000 across the state, and it must have other conditions, certain number from certain counties and this and that. So that's an uphill battle. And then over and above, these signatures could be challenged.
Yes, absolutely. So
So
we
tell us
actually
more.
didn't get 15. We got 30,000.
Okay. What happens if you get, let's say you got 16,000 signatures, and then the Republicans come to challenge our signatures, and they start ship one by one. This is like you cannot read it. Another one wrong address. Another one signed in the wrong place. Until they put you under the 15,000, and then you cannot even make it to the ballot.
Yes.
Even run for office.
Correct.
So collecting those signatures in and of itself is an unbelievable feat. And you collected 30,000 across the state, and that's commendable. Now, since you got ballot access above the threshold that they had before, then when you run for governor in 2022, assuming the rules are the same, how many signatures would you have needed?
If we don't have ballot access, 45,000.
Under the current rules?
Well, the ones they just passed, yes.
Yes, but let's say before those, what would have been the situation? You have ballot access.
Oh, hardly any.
Like 500 or
yeah,
whatever
3% of 8,000 is. What's that?
3% of 8,000.
That's what we need. What is that?
So
240?
Yeah, basically 80 is 10%.
So 240.
800 is 10%.
Yeah, so we need like 240 signatures.
Under 1,000 signatures.
Under 500.
Okay, in order to get. Now they changed the rules to up it 3 times almost.
Yes.
In order to prevent not only the Libertarian Party, but the Working Families Party.
Yes.
Other smaller party outside of the Republican and Democrat spheres.
That's correct. Absolutely. And if we don't get ballot access this year, my number will go from under 500 signatures to 45,000 signatures.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes. You must get more than 130,000 in order to make sure that 2 years after you don't get another.
Yes. Well, the other issue though is they did something very sneaky. They said 130,000 or 2%, whichever is higher. So in a presidential election this year, probably about 8 million New Yorkers will vote, which means I actually need 160,000. That's 2%, and that's higher.
Wow.
So I actually need 160,000.
I mean, this is not exactly gerrymandering, but it's basically prevention of competition.
100%.
Consolidation of power and corruption at the highest levels. And as you mentioned before, this was introduced, then struck down by a court. The governor put it in this latest budget that he passed.
Yes.
Unbelievable. I hope it's challenged, not for anything, but to give the people the choice. Okay. So now let's talk about this new campaign in 2020. This field has been struggling, for lack of a better term, for having someone with charisma. And when somebody talks about charisma in the Libertarian Party in 2020, it is Larry Sharpe.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. So what do you think your candidacy with Judge Jim Gray would do in the field? And have you received any communication from any of the other candidates?
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of it is I know them all, right? I mean, I've been active in the party. The funny part is if you haven't been active in the party for a long time, you probably know me more than you know the judge, right? If you've been in the party for 10 years or 15 years, you know the judge very well. If you haven't, if you've been in the party, say 5 years, 6 years, unless you live in California, You probably don't know the judge. He's been very active, but mostly in his own state, right? He goes to all the California events, Southern California events where he lives. So he's very active in California. He supports people's campaigns. He supported my campaign. He goes out once in a while and speaks in like Colorado or something, but usually the West area. He rarely comes to the East Coast or Central anymore, Central New York, Central U.S. anymore. But you probably don't even know him as well. Me, I mean, people know me, right? I've been around. I go raise money in other states. I've been helping other candidates. I've been doing that kind of stuff. So I know them all. So I literally called them. I just called them. And I said, look, I want to let you know before you hear from the grapevine, this is what's happening. And of course they weren't happy. Why would they be happy? Right? Many of them, they don't. Why would you want more competition in an already fractured field? Right? I mean, it's human nature. You wouldn't want it. Now, that doesn't mean many are like angry and want to throw us off. I'm not saying that, but why would you want more competition? The issue that we've had, and I think is one of the reasons why Judge Jim Gray is as popular as he is because no one's taken off, right? The argument that I have heard is, well, it's not fair. These people have been running for a year. Okay, well then you've had a year ahead of me and the judge. You should be killing us then, right? I mean, if you've had a year to run, why haven't you solidified everything? Why aren't you the front runner? And why aren't you devastating everybody, right? And I don't mean to be in any way a braggart. I don't. I just mean, seriously, if I decided I was going to run for president, I would have run last year. I would have started last summer. And by now, I would be dominating because I would have spent all of my time and energy building a team, raising money, being in the press. How do I know that? That's what I did in New York State.
Exactly. Yeah.
I ran a year before I got the nomination. Nomination. It was basically a coronation because I'd worked so hard. I grabbed all the good talent in New York. You were on my team, right? I grabbed everybody already. I grabbed them all on my team early. I was raising money. I was doing press. I was crossing the state. I was doing events already. I was doing it all. I was acting like I was already the candidate. So by the time I got there, it was a done deal.
I have seen you in action, and I don't think any libertarian put such a campaign other than the presidential candidates, and not even all of them.
So that's my argument. My argument is I get people have been working hard for a long time, and in theory, you should have had advantage over all of us. You should have been able to suck up all the good talent, take all the good money, grab everything. You should be in charge now.
Okay, so putting that aside, how do you differentiate on policy or anything else from the current candidates?
Yeah, I think you find that the judge and I think very similarly in one fashion. We're about making the government smaller. We're about understanding what the American population can accept and trying to give them what they can accept, right? I'm a business guy, and what you know from business is if you give somebody too much of a change in the market, they reject it. They reject it, right? But if you give them just enough change, they accept it, right? It's got to be a change, radical, but not too radical. For example, a good example is the electric cars. The electric cars don't have to look like the old style cars. They can look any way you want. They could make a completely different design. It could look completely different. But if you did, nobody would buy it. Right? It would be too radical of a change, and the market would reject it. Right? So the phones, the modern day phones that we have, right? They don't have to look that way. They're basically computers now. They're computers that you can make a call through. But they look like phones. Why? If it was too radical of a change, the market wouldn't accept it. We often feel the same way. I want a radical change, but in a way that the electorate can accept it. I think in that regard, him and I speak the same language.
Okay, so let's talk policy, for example, comparing with the current fields that you have, which is basically Trump and Biden. Let's say for some they see the light and they allow you guys on the podium with them in a debate.
Be crazy.
I know.
I hope so. Don't get me wrong. I hope so. But to be forward, Hesham, I'm moving forward. I do think that we are going to get at least one CNN town hall, right? Because that's what they gave Johnson and Weld in 2016. I think they'll give us that because they're going to test the ratings, right?
Yes.
If the ratings are high, if we knock it out of the park, if we get that town hall and knock it out of the park and it's exciting and people are talking about it and they're retweeting it on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, we'll get 2 or 3 more town halls, and we may get one of the other stations. We might get one on MSNBC and or Fox. We might. I think that's really possible. When we get in the debate stage, I think you're right. The odds are against it. We'd have to really have amazing town halls for that to happen, because the debate stage isn't actually about fairness. It's about ad revenue.
Yeah.
So if we knock it out of the park and we're really exciting and people want to see us, that's our only way of getting on the debate stage.
Just do me a big favor. If they ask you about Hillary Clinton, don't say she's a wonderful public servant, please.
Got it. Wonderful public servant. Right, exactly. And then ask, where's Aleppo again? I should ask all those things. Exactly right. Yeah.
I love Gary.
I do too.
He really did his best and put himself out, but it's not an easy thing to do.
No. Look, I'm teasing, but I love Gary Johnson. I will always support him. He's great. If he wanted to run again, I'd run with him again. I always love Gary Johnson.
Yeah. So tell me, do you think 2020 is different than 2016? Like, it seems to me, from my view, the Biden is basically Hillary, but in a male version, and we still have Trump. What's different this year?
Yeah, I think there's really 2 differences. Difference number 1, in 2016, most of the people who voted either Trump or Hillary, most of them were voting because they didn't like the other. And it was, well, I lean right, so I'll vote Trump. I lean left, so I'll vote Biden. I think it was mostly that. Oh, I'm sorry, Hillary. I think it was mostly that. Now, there is actual vitriolic hatred of Trump, which didn't exist in 2016. They didn't like him, but there was not a vitriolic hatred that there is now. And there's also on the opposite side, a worshiping of him. That didn't exist. I think that's piece 1 that didn't exist before. There are a group of people who now who voted for Trump because they just didn't like Hillary or they leaned right, but the left spent so much time attacking them that now they validated their vote in saying that Trump is all perfect and all knowledgeable and amazing. And the reverse is true, right? Those who voted for Hillary, oh, you're a libtard, you're horrible, you just hate Trump. So now they hate Trump, right? So it's been reinforced. So that's piece 1. But piece 2 is the virus. The virus, in my view, is a wild card. I do not know what's going to happen here. If there is a chance for a libertarian to sneak in somehow, it's this year. But to be forward with you, all we can do is run a good, solid campaign and hope that just happens to hit us the right way. Because there's no way we can control it. It is just luck. But if luck hits, we got to be ready to jump on board and take that thing. I actually believe, I'm going to tell you, it's going to sound crazy. We actually have a chance at winning. But we don't have much control over it, is my point. It's really going to be fate. Does the virus just kind of devastate everybody and make everybody think, no, it's all terrible? And do they blame Trump for it? Do they blame the establishment for it? Does that actually happen in the media? That's the hope.
So as I see it, the Trump supporters look at him as the second coming. And anti-Trump look at him as the Antichrist.
100%. Yes.
So that wasn't this intense in 2016, although the right and many in the middle, actually, many of the independents did not want Hillary. And maybe that's why they stayed home and didn't vote. And that's why I'm bringing this question to you. Do you think this year the independents who stayed home last time would do it again, or they would hold their nose and vote for Biden just to get us out of this, Titanic thing?
This is what I think. Take away the virus. No, they stay home. Take away the virus, they stay home. Or maybe become libertarian, or maybe go green. Maybe if they can get an exciting candidate that they might have come out for, right? But I think generally they stay home, and I think that's what happened in 2016, right? The Bernie Bros, give or take a third of them stayed and held their nose and voted for Hillary. Give or take a third of them actually voted for Trump because they were just rebels, right? And they wanted Bernie the rebel because they leaned left, When they lost the Bernie rebel, they went to Trump rebel, right?
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to have a rebel. I mean, look at you. The guy who ran my media was a former Bernie bro, right? He saw me as the rebel. He just wanted a rebel, right? He didn't know what Bernie's plans were in 2016. He just said, "Oh, this guy hates the establishment. I'm in." That's all they thought, right? Now that's not true anymore. Now Bernie's much more of an establishment candidate than he was in 2016. But in any case, I think a lot of them stayed home. About a third stayed home, a third voted for Trump, a third stayed. I think this case, because of the virus, we can't be sure, right? Right now, if you look at what's happening in the news, I actually did a podcast on this earlier. You look at Fox News versus CNN. Fox News literally says Trump did everything perfect for the virus. Perfect, flawless execution, perfect. And then you watch CNN. He did every single thing wrong. He didn't do anything right. Everything was a mistake. Everything was wrong. He couldn't have done worse. The deaths are on his head. I mean, that's exactly how they look.
Yeah.
The question is, will either narrative take? Right? I don't know if it will, but it might, because look, to be forward, Heshem, people are dying from this.
Yeah.
This is a serious illness, right? People are dying from this. Are people going to say, my God, my family and friends are dying? Who do I blame? If the narrative said that Trump is the bad guy, if that narrative actually sticks, Trump's in trouble.
Yeah.
If it doesn't stick, Trump wins, right? But if it sticks and then Biden can't do anything, we have a shot.
So now, Mo, that brings a two-part question, and I'm going to press you more on this. Now, you have this virus thing, and you see what Trump is doing. I was watching him on CNN earlier. I mean, it was a live press conference at the White House. And watching him is actually more fun, like funnier than watching some of the sitcoms. You know, the guy doesn't make sense.
Yes.
He tries to be serious. He ruins it even like more. So now
he's not good at being serious at all. That's not his skill set.
Absolutely not. So now, with such disastrous lack of leadership, and the people are actually, as you mentioned, people are dying, and some of it is on his hands.
Of course.
Not all of it.
Of course.
So now you will have Democrats and some independents say, no, this is unacceptable. We cannot have someone like this in the White House. And the most practical and pragmatic way to go is to vote for the opposite.
Sure.
In this case, Biden. Come the libertarians, and let's say in Ohio or Wisconsin, they get enough votes to give away those states to Trump, and Trump is reelected. Is there a responsibility on libertarians and the Libertarian Party maybe not to let that happen? What do you say to people who would tell you, just why don't you just support Biden just to get us out of this trouble, and then we'll talk in another 4 years?
There are two arguments here. The first one is, let's assume that's true. Let's assume it's true for a moment. So then what year is that not true? Every year is the most important election of our lives. Every year is that.
Yeah.
So if you take that as true, then why have a party?
Yeah.
Makes no sense, right? Don't have a party. So just on a logical piece, if it's true, I'm not saying it's true, but if you take that as true, okay, what year is it okay? Tell me the year it is, right?
When was it? Yeah.
It's an important election in the world. Second?
Yeah, when was it not? That's the most important. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's always, right? But there's a bigger piece. If you actually look at what's been happening, just remember, right? The same thing has been happening. Have things been getting better or worse? In almost any way you look at it, worse. Yeah. Wealth gap, poverty, all kind of problems happening there, right? More control, less freedom, surveillance state, worse fighting overseas, people dying, bad. And the funny part is, Democrats have been in control, Republicans have been in control, split government's been true. They've owned all three. They've owned one or two of them. Every combination that you want to put together, every permutation has existed, yet nothing changes. So my response to you is, when are you going to change? How is this my responsibility when you've been putting the same people in power for the past 40 years? Literally, these people are telling you, they're bending you over, and you keep saying, thank you, sir, may I have another? At what point do you stop accepting the punishment? That's my answer. This is no longer, be very clear, this is no longer their fault. This is now our fault.
We allow it to happen, basically.
They're beating us up. They're crushing us. Every 10 years or so, there's a crash. And every time it's a crash, there's a wealth gap increase because the wealthy buy up the assets of the middle class and working poor. The super poor, the very poor, while we should always care about them, they're actually not affected as much in these crashes because they're already in trouble, right? We should always care about them, but they're already in trouble. It's the working poor and the middle class that get devastated, and they get crushed again and again and again, and we change nothing.
Yeah. Actually, the first stimulus package during this pandemic was $2.2 trillion, 1.6 and another 700 billion that the Fed bought assets from the market to keep it afloat. So who benefits from this? Not us, not the people.
Not at all.
It's the same corporations. So, okay. So now, what policy difference would you say you and the judge would have from Trump and Biden? Let's say regarding this pandemic, how would you have managed it?
For the virus, you mean, or for the crash?
Correct. The pandemic.
Sure, absolutely. First thing, and I've mentioned this more than once. When you add government, you by default remove community. That's how it works, right? The war on poverty was the perfect example of this, right? The more we added government, the more we remove community. It's a common thing. So you can't just remove government. You have to create an environment that community can move in. I don't want people not supported. That's a terrible idea. I want people supported just by people who care about them, not by people who count beans, who check boxes, right? I want actual people who care to care about others. How do I encourage that? The second that I see the disease move from China to South Korea, trigger point. This is a big deal. Not local anymore. Big deal. At that moment, as a governor or as a president, doesn't matter, as an executive, I start to get my community in action. The first thing I say is, guys, this is going to come. We're not going to have enough beds. We're not going to have enough of all these things. Or we might, but I think we won't. Right? Maybe not, but I'm scared. I think we won't. So here's what I want you to do. I'm gonna relax and all of the restrictions on distilling. There's tons of them in the United States, right? Can't distill, can't make alcohol because booze, dumb reasons. Get rid of that and say, you know what? If you want to distill, go ahead. So you can make hand sanitizer. Not just that. If locally, I'm gonna allow you guys, if you want to immediately pull back and suspend all Department of Building Code regulations for creating environments in churches, masjids, synagogues, American legions, veterans of foreign wars, whatever. So that now you can create environments for people to come if you want to. Setting up cots, starting to get make masks, making hand sanitizers, all those things for either one of two things. If your community is a community where the elderly people are at home and can't leave and could be in trouble, no worries. Workers can come sleep here so they don't infect the elderly, right? Or the reverse. You can decide that the elderly will come here and we'll be here with masks and hand sanitizers and medical personnel so that we can take care of them. Next thing I do, and this is immediately, this is in December, I do this. Then I say all the rules that say a doctor cannot cross the state because they're not licensed in that state should immediately be rescinded. Allow doctors to go where they're needed, usually in higher population areas, but allow them to go if they want to. Go if you want to, no worries. Not just that. I instruct my district attorney, if it's local, or my attorney general, I instruct them, you are not to prosecute anyone who uses 3D printing in any way, shape, or form to create ventilators. I don't care if it breaks intellectual property laws. You are not to prosecute them. And I was saying this over a month ago, by the way, Hashem. This is on the record. I said this over a month ago. No prosecutions. If you want to make ventilators from 3D printing, nothing at all. Not just that. FDA, you will not step in and stop people, nor will you sue people if they make ventilators, if they make masks. You will not sue them. You can give them a stamp if you want. I don't have a problem with that. Or no stamp. You can send them DIY instructions if you want to, because you want this to happen. I'm okay with that. CDC, same thing. Note what I'm doing. I'm removing government early and allowing community to step in. Here's the reality. Most community would have not stepped in. They wouldn't, because there was no fear yet. But some would have. And those would have. Why do I know that? Because that's what always happens. There's always early adopters. That's simply human nature. Some people would have done it. Maybe the prepper types might have jumped on, right, and started doing it already. But once they start doing it, others begin to see it. And here's the best part. They would have made masks that did cool things like put, New York Yankees mask or something. And now people start making money on that. They go, oh, I can make money on masks? All of a sudden, they start making masks and ventilators and whatever. Boom, it starts happening. Then when it comes to America, we have an infrastructure to make things happen immediately. Now the government does what it does best. And there's one thing government can do well, and it's a cultural issue. The government can be a central repository for information. That's not a bad role for government at all. It's the center repository for information. It's the 911 call or the 311 call. I'm totally happy with that. And the FDA and CDC could have been the center of, here's where you get the information, but not just that. Here's where you give us data so that we can learn exactly what's happening and how to deal with this. Because the next thing we should have been doing is testing. We should have allowed tests to be created. The CDC stopped that. No, create a test, whatever test you want. In fact, here's the idea: follow the South Korea model and allow for voluntary testing wherever you want. In fact, allow literally for, again, any community center to use their parking lot for drive-through testing. In many areas, that's against the law. It's against building codes. No, let them. So relax all those codes and follow the South Korean model. Again, I'm being for you, Hashem. In the beginning, most people would not have done it. But as it began to happen, the news would have seen it. They'd have talked about South Korea. You would have watched people jump and play. I wouldn't have done what they did, which was lie and say, don't take masks, don't buy masks, it doesn't matter. All the lies they did to us, I wouldn't have lied. People would have started wearing masks now. And as you know, in East Asia, culturally, because of SARS and bird flu, many people in East Asia, South Korea, Singapore, China, Japan, wearing a mask socially is much more acceptable. Right? In America, not so much. But if we would have started early, it would have broken people into the idea of doing it, and more would have worn masks. We'd have more people wearing masks, more people self-quarantining. We wouldn't have had to shut the economy down, right? And the CDC would have been that central repository and said, guys, the rules are stay 6 feet apart, wear masks, wear gloves, do this, do that. What would have happened? All these restaurants and stores that are closed down would have changed how they do business. How do I know that? They're doing it now. They just would have done it 2 or 3 months ago. We'd have less people infected, and we'd have to keep our economy going. I got there's a deli across the street from me, and a guy now, he opened up recently. And what's he got? Plastic between him and the people when they're paying their money, plastic for the lotto and the lottery and him. There's a plastic in between. Everyone wears a mask and gloves. He wears a mask and gloves. Yeah, and we're surviving. That should have been the norm. And if we would have asked our community to step up, they would have. And that's what a libertarian presidency would have brought. But more importantly than everything, once that happens, the community is now ready for the next one, because there will be a next one. And right now we're not.
And so basically what we have done in 2 steps is act early and allow the community to participate. Make them prepared, make them ready, train them, less fear, and do things on a slower base than the rush that we were put through and the fear that we were put through.
Good leaders don't say, don't do anything, I got you. That's
Yeah.
not what good leaders do. Good leaders go, come on, Hashem, I need your help. Let's do this. Come on, brother, you with me? And
Yeah.
you go, yeah, Larry, I'm with you. Let's do this. That's
Yeah.
what good leaders do.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. On foreign policy, so Trump now is having those tariffs on goods coming from China, 25% is being said, and he's touting it as a major victory and this and that. Could you help those who are unaware or don't understand the concepts, why this will end up hurting the American consumer?
Yeah, look, the reality of it is, when this is over, whenever this is over, right? I hope soon,
Mm-hmm.
but whenever it's over, what we need is economic, increase. We need an economic increase. We've got to get the economy going again, which means we need trade going again.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we want to have a trade barrier?
Mm-hmm.
The reverse is what we should be doing, lowering everything. And this is radical, to be forward with you. This is radical and has a lot of people to disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
But we should be lowering all of our tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to encourage them to lower theirs.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get as much trade going back and forth as possible, as
Mm-hmm.
much as I can possibly get. If you have a tariff on Chinese goods, that just means Chinese goods cost more money here. So who pays for that? You and me.
Yeah.
But then there'll be goods made in America. Yeah, but we can't afford them.
Mm-hmm.
So who cares? We can't afford them. And if we can't afford them, we can't buy them. There's no job.
Yeah.
Now you might go, but then the Chinese people make stuff. Yes, they make stuff. They're making our masks now. They're making them now. But guess what? If the Chinese make them, someone in America has to distribute them.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in America has to retail them.
Mm-hmm.
It's American jobs. We still get American jobs from someone else manufacturing. If you think I'm making that up, look in the South and all the German car makers you have and Japanese car maker shops you have there. So German companies, Japanese companies, good paying jobs because Americans have to get the car out to the shop.
Yeah.
Americans have to repair the car, fix the car, sell the car. It's all American. German car, Japanese car, built, sold, fixed by Americans.
Yeah. So Larry, you're a veteran, and I think you understand what war is and why there shouldn't be a war except as a last resort.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us more about that in light of what is happening now vis-a-vis Iran, North Korea, China, and others.
We absolutely have to immediately stop being so damn aggressive. We just have to. We have to stop being so aggressive. And the issue is, I know this, and people will tell, but there's, people in Iran are fighting for this and fighting for that. And they are. Mm-hmm. This is true. They are. They're doing all types of shady things. It's true. There's all kind of people fighting in the Middle East for different reasons, North Korea for different reasons. Absolutely true. My issue is we're not making it any better. Mm-hmm. We're not making it any better. In fact, if anything, we're prolonging it. I would rather us be real diplomats, pull away militarily, and something else. The problem is, and you know this, Hashem, better than most. I mean, this is part of your world. We have to lie about it because we're so involved with it. Mm-hmm. If we instead would just remove ourselves militarily, we could then diplomatically be truthful to everybody. Remove the veil of us versus them, and our people are always perfect and their people are always evil. We can instead remove the veil and say, look at what these people are doing. Look at what their real reasons are. Is there a way we could do this without blowing each other up? And I think that's the big issue. We got to pull out militarily. I don't think we should walk away from the world. Just pull the troops out. And then we one of the best nations with this, not the best, but one of the best is Norway. Norway very often can kind of tell truth to power, if that makes any sense. And no one's bombing Norway, right? That's why there's an Oslo Accord, right? That's why that exists. No one's bombing Norway because Norway's like, we actually don't have a dog in this fight. We don't have the troops on the ground. So let's try to be up here and say, look, Iran, you're doing some stuff. We get it. We're not mad because you're not killing our people, so we can talk about it. Look, Palestine, Israel, you're doing some stuff. We're not mad because you're not killing our people. Let's talk about it. And this is what we miss. And this is why we're messing up. We have to pull out militarily, stay involved diplomatically, and realize something else. This stuff in the Middle East is deep. Mm-hmm. This isn't, let's write a peace treaty and everybody shakes hands and goes home. That's mm-hmm. not how that works. This is deep, deep stuff. It will take us decades to fix, mm-hmm. but we can't fix it until we start fixing it. And that's my issue.
Cool. You also have been outspoken about the war on drugs and rights in general. Tell us something about that.
Look, the war on drugs should end immediately. And here's the first step, and the judge and I are 100% in agreement here. Cannabis has to come off of the Schedule 1. That's Schedule 1 drugs. Got to come off. Mm-hmm. Number one, do that. Let's let that happen, and then the local governments deal with the rest. Just mm-hmm. pull cannabis off of Schedule 1. It should not be a Schedule 1 drug. Pull it off. Make it what it actually is.
Explain to people, why is that?
One, it's a Schedule 1 drug. That means the U.S. government sees cannabis as bad as heroin, as bad as cocaine. It's an opioid, like it's dangerous and it's going to kill you and it's the end of the world. When mm-hmm. you do that, you know what you can't do? You can't do experiments. You can't do research. You can't mm-hmm. actually figure out how this thing works because it's a Schedule 1 drug. Where's mm-hmm. all the research coming from? Overseas. Places mm-hmm. like Israel. Israel's doing work on this. They don't have it as a Schedule 1 drug. We do. We're losing patents. We're losing ideas. We're losing money. We're losing medicines. We're losing mm-hmm. it all. Mm-hmm. End it. No Schedule 1 drug. And then let the states decide how they want to work on that and begin to make this stuff more and more legal. Make it like a plant. It's a plant. Mm-hmm. No federal regulations except for as a plant. Do that and then watch the rest begin to happen.
Can the president, through the Justice Department, do something about the so-called nonviolent crimes regarding the drug war?
Yes. The funny thing is, once you end the Schedule 1, that's going to help tremendously. But there's another piece, right? What most people don't understand, and I learned this recently myself, it isn't the police chief or the cops who actually set the tone for how aggressive the police force is. Mm-hmm. It's the DA.
Yeah.
Right? The DA really sets the tone. If the DA says, I'm not going to prosecute crime A, cops stop arresting for crime A. Mm-hmm. If the DA says, I'm going to hammer people for crime B, cops arrest people for crime B, right? The cops mm-hmm. arrest people that the DA prosecutes. Why mm-hmm. would they arrest people the DA is not going to prosecute? Doesn't make mm-hmm. any sense. So if the Attorney General gets the word from the president to say, cannabis, your absolute lowest priority. Mm-hmm. Lowest priority. Mm-hmm. Done. But more importantly, how about we end civil asset forfeiture? Mm-hmm. Once we end civil asset forfeiture, a whole lot of the drug war can't be afforded anymore. You can't afford it. Mm. And once you can't afford it, it'll go away because you can't pay for it. You'll have no money for overtime, no money for COs. I'm sorry, COs. Not COs. CWs. Sorry, CWs. You'll have no money for that.
So what is asset forfeiture? What happens in this case?
Oh, asset forfeiture. A law enforcement officer believes that you have done something wrong. They don't have to arrest you. They just believe in something wrong, and you have cash on you or something of obvious value. They take it. Done.
As simple as that.
It's now theirs. And you have almost no rights unless you are very wealthy and can afford a lawyer. If you are middle class or working poor, you just got robbed. Literally, the cops just robbed you. That's it. You've been robbed. That's how it works. You don't have to be arrested. You don't have to be indicted. You don't have to be charged. Nothing. Literally, you will find some cops come up into a car and say, do you have any cash in the car? And you go, yeah, I got $4,000. Can I see it? Great. I think you're a drug dealer. I'm going to keep this. Done. That's it. Done. You just got robbed.
Yeah. And we've heard about many cases like that over the years.
But I'm not saying the cop is innocent on this. Cops shouldn't be doing this. But who sets the tone? The DA does.
Yeah.
Right? The DA can say that we're not going to do this anymore. The DA can say, stop this. We're not prosecuting this anymore. Stop. And that means a governor can say that. That means a county executive can say that. That means a mayor can say that. That means a president can say that.
Yeah. I hope that we talk more as the campaign goes about these issues in depth, but I don't want to end without talking about healthcare. When you were running for governor of New York in 2018, you had an impressive healthcare plan. Do you see that applicable nationally, and can you tell us something about it?
Yeah, look, the healthcare issue is one of the toughest ones, particularly with the virus, right? Because everyone immediately assumes, oh, so now we need government to run all of healthcare. That the Bernie Medicare for all argument is stronger than ever, right? Because people think we need healthcare. We do need healthcare, but it's a difference. The biggest issue that we have in America right now, and it's going to sound silly, but it really is the key, is that Americans can't understand that there is a difference between healthcare and healthcare insurance. We use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That in itself is the problem. Well, Obamacare was healthcare reform. No, it wasn't. Obamacare was healthcare insurance reform.
Yeah.
The healthcare system didn't get any better. It's the healthcare system that's broken. The healthcare system is a cartel system that encourages high pricing, price gouging, pharmaceutical gouging, cartels, monopolies. Yeah, you see it. More and more hospital groups getting bigger and bigger and bigger. More and more people who, what Obamacare did very well is get rid of choice.
Yeah.
Really good at that. Just trash choice.
Mm-hmm.
So the system hasn't changed. We've got to change the fundamental system. And the system has to be one to where the doctors talk directly with the patients. Well, Larry, that can't work. I can show you how it absolutely can work. Right next to it, look at all non-essential medical care. LASIK eye surgery, body enhancements, cosmetic dentistry, all of them. In every case, side by side, right? Not run by government, run by government. Run by government. Higher pricing, less people have it, poor service. Not run by government. Lower pricing, more accessibility, better service, better technology. There used to be, I tell a story often, when I was coming up and they started with the LASIK eye surgery, they used to do it per eye because it was so expensive. You get one eye, come back in a couple of weeks, put some layaway on it, so you pay a little more for the next eye. That's how much it cost. It was so expensive. Now, a couple $100, you're in and out. Service got better. Prices gone down. Most people have it. People get cosmetic dentistry. People get, body enhancements all over the place. Safe, cheap, more accessibility everywhere. Why? Government is not involved, yet people can still afford it.
Yeah. So what would you do as far as fixing the healthcare system as we have it, the healthcare insurance?
One of the first things you want to do is you want to encourage doctors to do work without insurance. Now, that's a hard thing to do. We are accustomed to insurance. It's very hard. There are many ways of doing this. Way number one, you can actually have people have cards for the Medicaid, Medicare. It's cards, right? So they know already, if you're on Medicaid or Medicare, the actuaries know about how much money you're going to spend per year. They have they literally have a matrix. Sorry, it's a matrix, matrix, which says, okay, you are this person, this height, this weight, with these, conditions. Odds are you will spend. You fit in this box, and this box is whatever, $5,000 a year. Insert number here. So we go, Heshem, you're in that box. You're on Medicare. Here is your credit card, your debit card. It's got $5,000. You can use any doctor you want. Good luck. Any doctor. Any doctor. $5,000 for the year. Go. Now, what does that mean? You can go to the best doctors you want if you want to. No in-network, out-of-network. You can go to doctors that don't take any insurance. And you live in New York like I do. All the best doctors don't take insurance. You know that. I know that too.
Yeah, I go to them.
Yes, they don't take insurance. So you can, now anybody can go there. Swipe the credit card, the debit card, get great doctor service. Right? What's going to happen now, Heshem, if you're on Medicare and you have $5,000 a year, you can go anywhere you want? What are you going to do with your Medicare?
I'm going to be very judicious.
That's correct. Yeah. Because the second you run out of your money, you have to go back to regular Medicare, which means you can't get your new doctor anymore. So you're going to do that. But not just that. What is a doctor going to do now who says, wait a minute, I can get Medicare cash? They're now going to market to you. they're going to market to you because it's another source of income for them.
Yep.
You begin to have less doctors on the insurance, more doctors going this route, more people using the debit card, reasons to get off of Medicare or Medicaid so you can get your own insurance and pay. But at the same time, you allow people to come up with their own types. And here's the piece I want to talk about. What happened? And this actually is called the gym model, right? It's the gym or the Costco model. It's the club member model, right? So you're a doctor group, and a doctor group has, everybody pays $300 a month or whatever it is. That's what they pay, $300 a month. And if you have a family, you pay $500 a month. And that's what you pay. That's your membership. You can come to the facility anytime you want. It costs $5. Whatever you need. Whatever happens, $5. You show up. I'm a member. Awesome. $5. Doctor sees you. And this doctor's group, what if they have a foot doctor and a ear, nose, and throat specialist and a GP? You get all of that. $5. If enough of it comes into it to make enough money, now they buy an MRI machine. So you get an MRI. You know what an MRI cost? $5 because they own it. It's in the basement. Doesn't matter. We're gonna cancer, whatever. We're gonna do. How much it cost? $5. Show up $5. That's what it costs.
Because you already paid the premium.
Constant income all the time. But not just that. In the current model, how do I get paid? I get paid in the current model by insurance only when one of two things or maybe three things happen. Prescription, procedure, test. That's why every time you come to my office, Heshem, you get one of those three. Because that's how I get paid. I don't get paid if you don't do that. You're going to get one of those three.
That's why I left your office.
Thank you. Exactly. I'm not a good doctor at all. But now what if you and I are doctors in that same place where we get $300 every month from people? What's our goal? No one ever shows up. I want to be playing Uno with you all day while we collect our money. No one comes to the office. So it's in our best interest for everyone to be healthy. Now, our interests are aligned. Doctor and patient interests are aligned. We want you to be healthy. Because if you're healthy, you're not coming into my office and you're paying me. The current model, I need you to be sick, Heshem. I can't get paid. I got bills to pay, Heshem. You better get sick because I got bills to pay. I need to give you some prescriptions, some every month of one-a-day pills so I can keep cranking that out every month. I need to give you tests. I got to. Otherwise, I can't get paid. So the system is broken. We have to change the actual system. And once prices come down, now we can work on insurance.
Excellent. I know there are more details that we can talk about in the future during the campaign. I hope you allow me the honor to host you again, and also Judge Jim Gray.
Of course.
I appreciate you coming on the show today when the announcement was yesterday. I think I'm one of the first to actually host you. So that's a great honor, and looking forward to having you next time. And I want to speak about surveillance and Snowden. I see him behind you there. So thank you, Larry. And
thank you. Don't forget, Gray Sharpe 2020.
Thank you, Larry. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this episode of Vantage Points. I'm Hisham al-Maligi. There are hashtags and there is hashtag. This is the hashtag. Have a good night.